My name is Nick B, and let's jump into this week's futures overview. So, as always, we're going to start off with the economic calendar at Forex Factory. Monday, not much going on. Tuesday, not much. Wednesday at 2 p.m., we have FOMC statement 2:30. Thursday, we have unemployment claims at 8:30 a.m. None that's pretty mid. Friday we have Flash PMI and Flash Services PMI at 9:45 a.m. Okay, so we're gonna have some kind of move or some kind of volatility to expect out of this week. Last week was atrocious. Absolutely atrocious. And I think for that reason, I'm going to make this session uh, really tech heavy because from the previous overviews, I mostly underlined the main levels I'm watching for. You know, you get a break and then it's like clear as day. Like, for example, right, we got a break of 15.5 and then on the intraday, 15.6 was that confirmation. Last week we went long on 15,665. We got a little bit of that push towards 15,730, and then basically the entire move reversed. I wasn't expecting a close even below 15.7 or 15,650, which was that intraday marker for us, but we got that and it kind of faked out. Yet we're still kind of in a uptrend, you know, where this isn't really scary. I need to see the big breaks, the big levels break for it to be scary. So as always, I'm going to do a little something different. So I'm going to underline the main levels I'm watching out for, right? The all-time highs, right? We have this pivot level right here, and I'm also going to change the colors up so it stands out. 16K, I'll leave that alone for now, although, you know what? Let's mark that off. And then let's see, this pivot point right here, which is essentially holding this entire move to the upside up. This here is just intraday channels, intraday supports and resistance levels carving out. Okay, so we have the main levels. Okay, so we're still between 15,265 and basically 16K from last week. We're still between it. That's good. If we were below 15,265, I'd be paying a little bit more attention to the downside. But again, I'm gonna go like deep into it. And also, you might be thinking, signals guys, you might be thinking, well, why weren't we attempting any of these shorts? Why weren't we shorting? I'll show you right now. Let me just change the colors up here. I guess we'll make it, yeah, we'll make them yellow so it stands out. So 1 second. Oh brother. Okay, yellow. Okay, now straight, I'm going to cut straight from the 2 year daily. I'm going to cut it down straight to the 1 hour. I'm going to ignore the 4 hour. 4 hour is not going to tell us anything really to watch out for. I just want to show you guys because most of these moves that are being reversed on or breaking out of, and most of the momentum that's flowing in, it's really you get a chance to see it on the hourly before you see it on the bigger time frame. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to mark off all the areas that specifically interest me in terms of being support, resistance, and I'll go over individually briefly why. So right away, this stands out to me. This right here stands out to me. This right here stands out to me. Let's see. Okay, we have this highlighted. What else? And again, I'm looking for the most recent SNRs going on the time frame. I don't really care what happened here. I'm not trying to really pinpoint support and resistance levels off of these levels because we kind of have a new channel, a new kind of channel here forming. Yeah, that's what it is. And I want to pay attention to what happened here previously. Maybe we could piggyback off of these support and resistance levels that were carved, and then maybe we could do something, you know, into this week. So this right here stands out to me. And again, I'll go over each of these levels briefly. Let's see. We have this level right here. This, let's see. This, not really. This right here. And I guess we'll make the base right here, which is at 14,600 basically. Okay. Last but not least, well, before I do that, let's go over what I have plotted, right? So let's get rid of that. Okay, so this right here is our 15,900 area. This is what I've been saying, that if we can potentially get that breakout, I really don't see an issue why we shouldn't head up towards the session highs of 1662. That's a long shot right now, since we are technically even below 15.5. If you remember, I was calling out that more or less psychological SNR level. We're below it. The next one that stood out to me was basically the session highs of 15.7. Let's call it 15.716. I guess that's where I plotted. I know it was a little bit higher, but roughly 15.700. If we can get a close above 15.700, in theory, we should have a good chance of climbing up towards 15.9. I don't see much that would slow price down. I mean, you have 15.40, 15.740. It's not really going to get in the way. What do you have? You have previous all-time highs that were previous session highs at 15.850. Okay, so if and when we get above 15.7, I guess the first level of intraday we'd like to get a clean entry on would be probably around the 15.740 area. That would be kind of like that would give you that for sure. Okay, we're above the supports of 15.7. We now have room to climb higher towards the next main R, which is at 15.9. And we would just keep in mind, I guess, 15.850. If we can manage to get above that previous session high, then again, what's an extra 50 points for NQ? It shouldn't have an issue reaching that. That's in terms of upside just off of these intraday SNRs. I didn't highlight this one too much. I mean, it's 15,650. At this point, 15,650 last week served us well, but moving forward into this week, it's probably irrelevant, since the highs were made at 15,730, or along the lines of basically above 15,700. So my main focus is above 15,700. Can we do something there? And then, depending on whether we can get to 15,740, which were those session highs also previously, I guess there's some history to that level, we would get an entry. Downside, again, nothing really stands out to me except this channel right here. I find it interesting that we rejected off of here, bounced all the way up to 15.7, came back down to where we're right below it, almost retesting that breakdown. Fine. We have a little bit of resistance here. Previously, we reached 15,418 it is over here, and then we rejected all the way down to 14,750. That's a steep drop, but again, off of 14,750, we were able to regain it and come back up to 15,418, get above it, and then we did that climb towards 15,667, roughly around there. Again, that's also what inspired me, that when I saw that we got above that level, that also kind of gave me that green light. Hey, maybe, since we got that intraday break, maybe we can make our way towards the next big R. That wasn't the case. We obviously reversed around here, and Q resulted in a loss. But this is the levels that I'm watching for on the hourly. Okay, so we know 15,418 is that resistance currently. Below 15,418, now this is that pivot level, and I'm actually going to adjust it just so I have that cleaner set. Oh, 50. Oh, where's my numlock? Come on. 56. Okay. So this is that pivot level that's on the 2-year daily, right? Right here. We know that maybe as long as we can hold above this level, maybe we have a chance that price can kind of continue in this range and maybe get out of it. If we break back down below it, it's going to be the same song and dance. We're going to be looking at the previous higher lows as well as what's going on the intraday. So let's break it back down to the 1 hour. So 15,265, that's going to be our main kind of standing line support. Basically, not basically, but technically, we should be heading down to it as long as we're below 15,418. Okay, is that a short in it of itself? I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. I'm not a fan of the environment that price action has been in lately. So below 15,265, okay, that's going to be our threshold. Now, this level stands out to me. 15,160, 15,159, potato. But on the intraday, we came down here and we were able to basically close off. I think it was the third quarter before the contracts rolled over, and then last week when we had that open, we had that kind of spike here, but it was just from the rollover from the contracts updating from U23 to Z23 if you're on Thinkorswim. So okay, fine. We know there's some dominance here at 15,160. Okay, fine. I checked along here as well. Found it interesting that we perked up here once, twice, and then when price was below that level, we kind of we created a channel that basically went from 15,160 down to 1525, basically 15,000 area. And as well, here you have a hiccup here. You have some history. You have some history here where price was bull flagging almost. It was right below it, and then once we got that squeeze above it, you can see how we held. Price couldn't break back down below 1525. When we started climbing up towards 15,418, which was this wick that we had previously. Okay, fine. Okay, so 15,160, below 15,160, I plotted 15,25 again, and below that level, I'm looking at, I mean, you have some support here off of this bounce I'm looking at, right? That we made a little bounce off of 14,8, let's see, 14,880, basically 14,900. And then if you come over here, you could see that price action was acting as a this level was a pretty decent resistance level until we got that squeeze above it, and then we were able to go towards this intraday resistance of 1525. Okay, what's below that? Well, I didn't quite plot it. Let me go ahead and plot it because again, this is going to be a tech heavy session. So I'm going to underline everything that stands out, and you're going to see a little bit of a different approach than I usually take because I look at the 2-year daily depending on the channel that we're in. That's kind of my determining factor on whether I want to do something or not. But here we are on the hourly, on the intraday. What are we supposed to be watching out for? Because there's a lot going on here. Okay, so below 15,8, 15,900, I mean 14,900, excuse me, we have the next support being at 14,750. It stood out to me here because we wicked right off of it, and that's where our climb began from 14,750 all the way up to 15,650. Super interesting. We came down from 15,650 down to 15,160 and then bounced off of it. So these are some crazy channels, but okay, we have that in mind. And last but not least, the support that's holding this up is 14,612. These I can't even say session lows, but these were the lows back in what, August, roughly second week of August, until we bounced out of there, started making higher lows, and then we're still not below any of the previous higher lows. So I guess if I was to say, yeah, we could maybe short, maybe if we can't retake 15. I don't like that because you don't have that certainty here. I rather wait for, this higher low of 15,160 to break, and then okay, we can short targeting the next higher low, which we've identified was at 14,750. These right here are just levels to keep in mind. I guess we can call them navigation levels. And what I mean by that is if we break below the previous higher lows of 15,160, technically the next higher lows would be our next target down to 14,750, but not in this market, not quite. There's going to be some levels that kind of are telling us that might not play out, or that might play out. So in the case of where we do short, let's say at 15,160 or 15,150 our entry is, and we're targeting 14,750, if we come down to 15,25 and we begin to stutter around here, I'm probably going to exit out of that short and sit tight until, either price action gets back above the main levels, or we continue below 14,850 and then we come down towards 14,750. I mean, excuse me, 1525. So if 1525, fails to break from the beginning, most likely these shorts are going to start to stutter and it might reverse. But if 14,800, 14, whoa, 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 I'm going too fast. If 1525 does break, then in theory we should be coming down towards 14.9, and then below 14.9 we could target 14.750. If 14.9 again we begin to stutter, or price action is kind of trying to bounce off of it, or let's say we do bounce off of 14,900 and we come back up to 1525, the minute we peak above 1525, even though our entries would be maybe around here, or I mean, excuse me, around the higher lows of 15,160. If we start peaking above 1525, then it's like, okay, maybe this whole move's gonna reverse. Maybe I should get out of these shorts. Crazy to sit and do it. I mean, totally. I mean, there's guys that sit there and trade it like that, but not my cup of tea. My goal here is to just show you guys that, you know, you could trade through these intradays, but how much of a thought process has to go into it? What are your risk to reward options? What is the overall trend? All that stuff you have to take into consideration. So that's why we've kind of been taking it easy on the future side. I mean, last week I was a little frustrated with our ES and NQ long. I don't think that the techs were right. The texts were beautiful. It was on point. It was showing us clearly that we're going higher. But, price action had something else in mind. We reversed, and we're still inside the channels that aren't really scaring us to the downside. So it's like, what do you do? All right. Okay. So now that we broke down most of these intraday support and resistance levels, now it's about the waiting game. The other thing I like to do, especially on the 1 hour or the 4 hour, is I like to fib. I don't show it much, but in this case, I like to fib to confirm some of the support and resistance levels that I plotted with my naked eye. In theory, they're supposed to line up with the fib that I'm going to draw out right now, and I'm going to go from the session highs from 1662. What? Oh, whoops. Let me get a fib. Come on. Okay, from we'll fix that. But let me fib this from 1662 and then down to the lows of 14.6. Let me fix up the color as well so that it's easier to see. And interesting enough, we should have some of the SNRs lining up. For example, let's see, the 38.2. Okay, before I start breaking down the levels as well, I have to point out that with the Fibonacci retracement, the main levels I ever care about is 61.8, 50, and 38.2. Everything in between is baloney. It's like navigation levels. Yeah, sure, we could be respecting, the 70. Well, I don't even know what it is, 78.6 and the 23.6, but we don't care about that. The golden levels has always been 38.2, 50, and 61.8. Also, on a side note, if price was not, if we didn't have like a high and a low here where it was kind of near to the channel, if price was trading on the higher side of the range or if price was trading on the lower side of the range, I wouldn't see a need to fib anything because, you know, the main levels is 38.2, 50, 61.8. I don't really care what's going on the outside of them. But because we are kind of in this middle side channel, I thought it'd be fine that we fib it and then we'll see what we get. So the 61.8 is our 15,500 level, more or less. That's psychological SNR that I've been calling out. Okay, so we confirmed that this is our intraday support resistance of 15,418. Okay, the 50% retracement is at 15,336. Okay, our pivot level on the 2-year daily that technically, as long as we're above it, we should be bullish, is going to be 15,265, which is near okay. And then our 38.2 level actually lines up perfectly with 15,160. Well, I have 15,160. The fib says it's 15,164. That's it. Lights are going off in my head. Meaning, earlier, when I was telling you guys that, let's say we wanted to short, I'd feel a lot more comfortable shorting on a break of the previous higher low of 15,160 because then you can target the previous higher low of 14,750 and then use the intraday support and resistance levels as navigation, whether price can continue its move downward or if it begins to stutter and flip, we can also be aware of that and get out of it. Well, in this case, it's perfect. Our 38.2 lines up on 15,164. And at the same time, because this is on intraday and we know how things like to flip flop in this environment on intraday, I'm going to kind of disregard 15,265 as that main SNR, main pivot level while I am on the hourly. When I get on the daily, I'll start giving it more attention, more focus 15,265. But as long as we are on the 1 hour, it's just a different animal going on here. So again, to me, it confirms that okay, below 15,160, I would like to short it down to 14,750 towards the next higher low, but a realistic target to the downside probably would be 15,000 first. Then, again, I kind of disregard 23.6. I'm going to go ahead with the handmade support resistance level that I pointed out at 14,900. So below 15,000, I'll be targeting 14,900, and then if 14,900 doesn't give us any problems, we can target 14,750 easy. Okay, sweet. We just found the setup on the intraday using fibs and isolating each individual level that kind of stood out to me to the naked eye. Okay, that's to the downside. But Nick, aren't we on a bullish trend to the upside? Yes, we are. But, seeing last week's price action, seeing how momentum's been flip-flopping over the last 2 months, really, maybe we can take a different approach instead of waiting for the bigger time frames to break out, like for example, 15.7 instead of waiting for 15.7 to break and wait for 15.9, which is also still a setup that we could target. Maybe we could play something in between the levels here. Maybe it'll be worth it. So in terms of downside, this is the best risk to reward I see is a break of 15,160, and you could target 15,000. Maybe set your stop loss. Let's see. 100 points from entry, and then you could ride it out easily to the downside. Yeah, literally 100 points, and then you're targeting, really your main target is 14,750 to the downside. But again, keep in mind 15,000, then you have 14,900, and then below 14,900 you can look at 14,750. Okay, so that's with NQ. I'm also gonna clean this up for now, just so it doesn't cloud me up. Let's see, 15. I'm gonna leave this. I'm gonna actually change the color of it to green to identify as the first take profit that I'm gonna want to take on the intraday, and then I'm gonna make this 14,750 also green to color code basically, so it's easier for me to identify what I'm targeting if my main levels start breaking down on the intraday, such as 15,160 here, and vice versa. Let's see if we can get above 15,418. Now let's talk about upside, because I covered the setup where if we get above 15,700, right, I'd look for an entry possibly around 15,740, which were those previous session highs, really, if you want to get technical and zoom in. And then you have right here 15,740. This to me stands out. It still has some history to it. Why do we reject from 15,740, come down to 15,520 twice, and then bounce out of there? So this all should line up. So 15,740 I target to the upside, targeting 15.9 should be not an issue. But in terms of here, well, if we get back above 15.4, would you go long here? And I don't think I would, because you don't have a certainty that you can get back above 15.5. And then even if you do get back above 15.5, sure, you can take the risk of targeting, 15.650, 15.700, but there's nothing in between that will kind of tell you, maybe that trade might not work out. You're going to have to sit there, watch it, wait for it to kind of catch that reversal, if a reversal happens. Whereas in terms of the downside layout, where I broke it down, where we determined that based off of levels, so for example, if we break below 15,160, we know we're probably going to be targeting the higher lows of 14,750, possibly. It just makes sense, right? And if we do, we know that through the systematic support or resistance that are still kind of been carved out on the intraday, if we begin to hiccup at 1525, well, most likely the rally to the short side is probably going to be short fueled. Maybe we start turning around. That gives you kind of a better green flag of exiting your short position. Kind of, you could catch it beforehand because you see that there's some action going on between that support and resistance level, and you can kind of catch that. Whereas you're basically going off of instinct between these levels, because you don't really have a solid base of support resistance between this channel. You don't have, I guess, certainty. You don't have those navigation levels, and I don't want to take chances, right? You're better off going to the casino than trying to trade between this range of, in my opinion. So above 15,700, that's great. We get a close, maybe 15,740. That would be upside. Again, and a break below 15,160 on NQ. Maybe we could target 14,750, the first take profit being at 15.25, and then we'll go from there. Everything here in between, I'll leave it alone. Let's move on to ES. Ah, okay. Same thing. I'm just gonna clear this whole drawing set. Not much on there, but okay. So let's start off with the pivot points, right? We're gonna color code them yellow. We have the all-time highs. We have 46.30. We have 43.25. That's all we need to know with ES. Now let's make them yellow. All right, yellow. Okay. And now let's jump straight into the hourly. Okay. I'm probably gonna zoom in on this a little bit more. Okay. So we want to focus on what happened. What is between here? So this is interesting to me, this downside channel that's standing out to me, but at the same time, this is interesting to me, right? 43.50, where we kind of bottomed and started making new higher lows. 43.50, 43.70, 43.65, but we are familiar with 43.70 from the past, right? If we trace it along here, we have 43.70 from back in June of 2023, where we kind of bounced off of that, proceeded to make higher lows and made the session highs towards the pivot level of 46.30, then rejected back down. And it's kind of been the same song and dance between this massive channel between 43.25 and 46.30, right? Okay. So let's look at the now, and I'm gonna go ahead and start plotting these SNRs that stand out to me. So this right here stands out to me. This, yeah, it stands out. I mean, why would we come up here? We attempted it once, twice, failed. On the third time we got to it, but we made this high at 45.65, came back down, breaking below it. Okay, this, I would say this stands out to me, but like there's inconsistencies here, right? You have price kind of slashing in between it. Let me see if I plot it, what it looks like. 1 second. Okay, so price rejected here, held as support, bounced, fake breakdown, bounced, breakdown, resistance. Okay, okay. And then we broke down here, we have resistance, then we got back above it, held as support. Okay, and what is this? Oh, look at that, a retest of the breakdown right at this. Okay, so I'll leave that up. 45.17. Oops, what's going on? I'll leave that up. Okay. Plot off this level right here, right? Why would we come up to 44.85 rejected on the next go around? We broke above it. We didn't quite retest it. We, if anything, on the rollover of the contracts, we left this gap here. Okay. I'll leave it here just for now because if we do break below 44.85, most likely we might be visiting, I would say 44.34, 44.40 really. I'm going to go ahead and plot that out right here. It actually stands out to me. I'm going to use 44.40 because I also know that ES likes those round numbers, 44.20, 4400, 44.40, 44.60. So that's a good area right here. We have, okay, so we had that breakdown, half-ass retest. Not really, didn't quite retest it, but we came around here, made what looks like a double top, rejected back down, but on the third time around, we broke above it, retested, made the highs of 44.85, broke down massively, came down to this level right here, 43.70, 43.65. Okay, bounced off of it, held as support once we got above it, and then we took off. And when we made the new highs of 45.47, 45.50 basically, we rejected back down, breaking back down below 45.17, getting back down below 44.85, and then ultimately slowing down around the 44.40 channel. Okay, so this is a good support zone. Okay, and last but not least, I'm going to plot out. I'm just gonna put 43.70 because I know for a fact that that definitely has some supply to it. If we do come down and break below 43.70, it's pretty much green as day that you're probably gonna come down to 43.50, and I'm gonna probably avoid marking 43.50 right now, just so I have a bit of a cleaner chart. I don't want to mess it up. Okay, so we've identified these levels here. Now, what's going to give us a direction depending on what we break out of or break down from? Hold on. This stands out to me, but that's 45.60. That's no better than the highs that we made at 45.65. So I'm going to leave that here. I was going to plot SNR right here because I thought it was interesting how we bounced here, we bounced here, we bounced here, and then when we broke down, we retested the breakdown of this level with 45.60 to the T and rejected back down. It's that psychological SNR, but I'm going to leave that alone because I'm going to leave 45.65 because I know then for a fact if we can get above those session highs that we made, then we should have no issue continuing higher. Now, above 45.65, what's going on to the upside? Well, I see a gap to fill right here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So we have a gap to fill basically from 45.87 up to 4600. So when we went long last week above 45.50, it should have been clear as day that we should have no issues at the minimum approaching 4600 as the first take profit, and if we're able to fill that gap of 4600, again, we should have no issue climbing back up to 4630, but that was not the case. We kind of died off a little bit earlier than expected at from 45 65. So I'm going to keep these levels up. Nothing's changed. I would say that 4600 is going to be that first take profit level, and I'm going to go ahead and first of all adjust it because I know now that there's a gap to fill, and all gaps get filled at some point one way or another. We're going to make it green. Okay, so we have that here. Okay, we have that to the upside. Again, I would attempt along, not anywhere in between these levels. I mean, again, you could try, going long above 45.17. Technically, it should climb up to 45.47, but, let's see, what are you risking here? Below 45.17, let's say you risk even, have a tight stop, risk 17 points to make 30. Okay, you could do that. You could do that. Not my cup of tea. I think if anything, I've just been spoiled. So I like a little bit more of the heftier move. So I'll kind of sit out of the smaller swings to protect my peace of mind because that stuff does have an effect on you. Okay, downside. Well, we have support here. What is this right here? We wicked. When was this? Last week, Wednesday, at 44.95. Bounced off of it, and here we are slightly bouncing off of it as well. Okay, okay. I'm just using the price action levels to kind of paint a story to me. Okay, so if we go below 44.95, really we know below 4500, that's the main SNR that we've been calling out. So if we break below 4500, technically the next main SNR that's on the intraday is 44.85. And if we break below 44.85, we're probably going to be looking down at 44.40 because then we're going to be entering a new channel. So we have the channel that goes from 44.40 up to 44.85. Then the channel goes from 44.85 up to 45.17. And then we have another channel that goes from 45.17 to 45.50, and then from 45.50 to 45.60. Above 45.60, you have a green light to head up towards 4600. Okay, we've identified that much. Hold on, my screens on the top went out. Okay, where would you want to short? I would say I would bite for a short probably below 44.85, right? We would target 40 points to the downside, and okay, so it would be a 2-to-1 risk to reward ratio. We're risking 20 points to make 40 points to the downside. Okay, I don't know. I don't know. I'm gonna say it is a setup, but it's not a setup that I would be willing to enter. I don't know. It just doesn't feel right, so I'm gonna avoid that. But a nice short probably would be below 44.40. I don't see any reason why we don't come down towards really 4400. 4410 was a long time higher low, and let me point that out as well. You see, you have 4409, really 4410 in this level where we bounced off of it. We came back up, attempted that retest of a breakdown of 4440, and then continued down to 4370. And notice right here previously, 4410 had some kind of history to it because that was the previous higher low that essentially held a move up where we made those session highs to 4634. Interesting. Interesting to just keep in mind if we do at some point start breaking below 4440 or even below, well, no, 4440, because below 4485 you're coming down probably towards 4440, but you don't have that certainty that you're going to break this previous higher low and then head lower. You don't know that. So in terms of downside, definitely I would be more cautious than upside. So below 44.85, again, I'm targeting probably 44.40. That's a setup, but again, depending on how price action is acting, that'll determine whether I want to enter into that scalp short or not. And most of these trades, most of these setups that I'm pointing out on the hourly, on the intraday, they should be day trades. They should not be swing trades. It should not take, I think, maybe more than 2 or 3 days for the trade to develop and hit. If it does, then most likely you're probably just ending up chopping inside a bigger channel that's now forming. And then again, below 44.40, right? We're targeting 44.10. That could be something, but really our main target to the downside would be probably 43.70. And I'm going to go ahead and make that green so I know that actually no. No, you know what? I'll leave that green so I know that that's going to be the targets to the downside. Needed to clarify that for myself. And that's that. I mean, below 43.70, you have 43.50, and then below 43.50, you're coming up on 43.25. You get a break of 43.25. Again, I don't, on the hourly especially, and if it closes below there, maybe on a retest, you could get an entry in at 43.25 as long as price doesn't break above it. I think that is an easy short down to 4200, but again, that is so, like, that is just ways away. I just want to, help identify these support and resistance levels on the intraday. um, maybe it will kind of give us a better idea of what price action might do, because obviously on the bigger time frames like the 2-year daily, you're just left with waiting around a ton, and then when you do get those breaks, most likely they fade out on bullshit momentum. The momentum just starts to kind of die down. You get these reversals like we did here from last week. But again, we're still holding above 4,500 on ES, so that's in terms of upside and downside. And last but not least, oops, I'm gonna go ahead and try to fib this as well because I am somewhat curious to see if the Fibonacci retracement at some point would line up next to my SNRs that I've plotted out. So let's go ahead and go from the session highs to the lows. Edit. Let's make it blue so it stands out. And let's see. Okay, so in this case, it doesn't quite line up with what I've plotted out to the naked eye. However, I feel a lot more comfortable with what I have to the naked eye over what the fibs are telling me. So the fib, the 61.8, is at 45.25. In this case, we have 45.17 really that I like better. 50% retracement is at 44.92, basically 4500. And again, even if we do slip below 4500 or even down to 44.92, that is still not a breakdown on the intraday because you got this little bugger who might be holding out on some supply. And if you get a break of 44.85, again, I don't see why we don't come down towards, well, I guess 44.58 for this. It's not a real gap fill. It's just because the contracts rolled over, but I guess 44.60 would be that first intraday target area, and especially because 44.60 lines up with this wick here where we bounced. We came down here, we bounced, and then when we broke down, we had that retest, the false breakout, and then it still acted as a resistance level as price started to break down lower, and then we made our way down to 44.40. And then below 44.40, you could see how we attempted that retest, and we ultimately started to slip back down towards 4400, 4370, and then below 4370, we bottomed out at 4350. So the fib doesn't tell me anything I do not know. If anything, it's just an eyesore, so I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of that. So that's in terms of upside, downside on ES. Let's pull it up on the 2-year daily as well. See how messy it is in between here on the bigger time frame, but that's okay. However, again, the main points that we're in between is 4630 and 4325. Everything that's going on in between is baloney. Doesn't determine nothing. If the market's green one day, if the market's red one day, doesn't mean jack anything to me. Unless 4630 breaks or 4325 breaks, I mean, it's kind of like a chop range really on ES. And similarly, let's go over to NQ one more time. And same here. As long as we're above 15,265, we technically have the room and should have the power to head up towards 16,767. But of course, we got to work through the intraday SNR. So the main levels that I would like to see us, if we break below 15,265, as I mentioned on the breakdown of the intradays, that's not really going to be the green light for me to short. The green light to short is probably on a break of 15,160, just because on the hourly, these are the higher lows that are essentially holding up the move. Higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, lower lows, right? So if we start making lower lows and lower highs, then we definitely have a confirmation of trend reversal, at least on the intraday side, and we can safely and target the levels we need to on just using technicals. I can't account for what the fundamentals might look like or be into the next week. I mean, we have the FOMC Wednesday. I mean, Monday and Tuesday are going to be pretty quiet. Wednesday we have some action. Thursday we have some action in the morning, and then Friday we have some action in the morning. So let's see how this week pans out. I really wanted to be much better than last week. That was super frustrating going long and having the market basically spit in your face, tell you, "Oh yeah, your analysis was right, but fuck you," basically, and then turn around. So let's see if maybe approaching it from the intraday side would be a little more beneficial in reading direction. Just the main thing though, why I tend to be hesitant around executing in such price action, especially with these intraday swings, is I don't like trading momentum. I don't like trying to time the direction that we're gonna go in, because you don't know. How could you act on something you don't know? So we don't do that. Definitely I'll be eyeing the VIX into next week as well. Let's see. We closed at the lows and we started to bounce up towards 14. VIX, I usually only keep on the 1 hour, and I want to clear these up, but should I? Yeah, you know what? I'll do it for you guys. I'll clear it up. Let me get rid of, and I'll have to do it individually because I don't want it to disappear from my other monitor. So with TOS, it's kind of weird. If you clear the drawing set, and let's say I have TOS on the first PC and TOS on the second PC, if I clear it, it's going to clear it for both terminals. In this case, if I remove it one by one, I'm going to still have it on on the monitor that's up there, but it's going to be cleaner here. And I've never touched my SNR for VIX, but just for you guys, I'll do it. Okay, so VIX, first and foremost, right? Let me put this on the 2-year daily, and let me mark off kind of the oh shit territory. So that's gonna be right here, and let me edit that to 20, because 20 is really the oh no level. Okay. 18, if we get above 1889, it's like, okay, maybe we could see some pressure. But otherwise, and again, I'm not looking at anything that's been happening in the past. I really want to just see what's going on in the now. So I'm going to go ahead, zoom in here, and what are some SNRs that I can find right away? Well, it's VIX tends to be a little messy, but this right here I want to point out, and the reason for that is, well, this is a false breakout, right? We came back down below. You have price action that kind of gapped up above this level, and what's this level again? 1478. Okay, and we're kind of holding above it, then we got a breakdown, then we came up, couldn't get above it, stayed below it, gapped up, it's held as support, okay? Then we got a breakdown, a retest of the breakdown, and we're still below 1478. Okay, so I'm gonna leave that up. Next, I'm going to go ahead and plot this level right here, which is essentially the lows, 1268. I mean, I know we've came down to 1274, or it might be, it might be what, 1276, but as of now, because we got that green candle, 1268 is going to be our bottom. Okay, so now definitely what we've identified on the daily is that the channel that VIX is between is the lows of 1268 and excuse me, 1478. Ah, refreshing. Okay, so the higher the VIX goes, in theory, we should sell off, and the lower the VIX stays or kind of keeps treading lower, we should get some kind of a boost in the market. Let me go ahead and break this down to the hourly. I'm going to skip past the 4 hour because, again, 4 hour is not really going to tell us what we need to see going on the intraday. Okay, so this is the way I see it. If we do come up towards 1482, we are probably gonna get some kind of a pullback on ES or NQ. However, if we can't get back above, or if not back, but if we can't get above 1478, most likely, VIX rejects back down, and most likely equities, futures, NQ, ES, we should be bouncing off of the new higher lows that we just made into last week from last week's up and down action. If we do break above 1478, okay, our next culprit is probably going to be this wick right here at 1570. And if we do end up reaching 1570, well, most likely we should see a continuation of that selling to the downside. I'm going to go ahead and mark off 1570 for myself as well. Excuse me. I usually don't fib the VIX either. I don't. I think that's. I used to. I used to. Back in 2021, I fibbed the VIX from basically its lows to its highs, and that was the most unbelievable fib I've ever had the pleasure of experiencing. Let's see, it was back in 2021, right? So I basically fibbed. Let me see. I just want to throw this out there as well because I've never seen price action respect the fib besides gold as well as VIX did back in 2021 when I fibbed basically the highs to the lows in January and then we bottom. It was it was perfect. You could just see, where when we would keep selling, when we would start to catch a bid, why was price action rejecting. And you could see 38.2, 50, and 61.8, our main intraday, our main, my main levels that I like to watch out for. It was just beautiful when price was in between it. It was it was either black or white, and I love that simplicity. However, as of right now, I can't fib it. It doesn't make sense to fib it. It's not going to give me anything I don't know already or anything that my naked eye can't pinpoint on the chart. So I'm just going to remove it. But that was a wonderful fib. I had to point that out. Good times, good times. So let's see how this week develops. I mean, it's going to be pretty calm from the start. I know markets opened, but again, above 1478, or even if we do get that push towards it, most likely we can expect some kind of a pullback. And if we continue towards 1570, most likely we're going to continue above 1570, probably going to come up on 17. And again, the selling's going to, it's just going to give juice to the selling to the downside. But if we end up hanging around this area or maybe even going lower, which is crazy to think, but if we do end up hanging around this area, most likely it's going to be a chill market. And if there's no volatility in there, most likely those intraday, swings are going to pan out to turn into chop on the higher time frames. Other than that, that is all she wrote. I hope you guys have a great, solid trading week ahead, and we'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.